Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening everyone, welcome along to Silverstone and the fourth night of racing in the VRRC Civic Cup. A week ago were racing on the tight, twisting, undulating confines of the Alton Park circuit in Cheshire. This week's challenge could not be much more different. It's the fast flowing, ultra high speed Silverstone National Circuit, which is going to present a very different challenge for the drivers tonight, but hopefully some really good racing. It's certainly got all of the ingredients to provide perhaps the best racing of the season, so strap yourselves in for what is set to be an evening full of door-to-door racing action. Andy McEwen here in the commentary box, not joined by Jack Oliphant this week because Jack is off watching some funny sport where they run around hitting balls on a field. Cricket, I think they call it. Half as exciting as what we're going to be seeing tonight. Instead, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Dave Marshall, who will be familiar to many of you here on the VRRC. Dave, welcome back to the comms box.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I've got to try and remember how to do this side of it now instead of doing the race directing. But yeah, as you said, absolute pleasure to be in. I think you bang on with what you said as well. Silverstone really going to provide some very, very interesting racing, and also, for me, a lot of outside chances of drivers who maybe haven't had quite the speed on some of the more technical tracks, as we've seen from the previous rounds. But coming here, anyone within about half a second's got a real good chance.
Yes, the fourth of 6 rounds, so the fourth of 6 circuits that we'll race at this season. We've already been to Brands Hatch, Thruxton, Alton Park, as I said a week ago, Silverstone tonight. In a week's time, we go to Croft, which, again, a completely different type of circuit. Fast, yes, but very, very bumpy and quite narrow as well. And then it all rounds out on the Donington Park National Circuit on the 8th of June in 2 weeks' time. And given how tight the championship standings are at the moment, it's highly likely that we're going to have a last round decider at Donington Park, so you will not want to miss that. A circuit that always does produce really good racing. I said that it's tight in the points. I wasn't lying either. Scott Bugner just 1 point clear of Max Edmondson at the moment at the top of the championship table. They've had two slightly different seasons, actually. In the 3 weeks that we've had so far, Max Edmondson has qualified on pole for every week. He's won race one every week, but has yet to get a podium in a reverse grid race, whereas Scott Bugner is rarely off the podium. His worst finish all season so far is a 5th place finish in the second race a week ago at Alton Park, but he's yet to win a race, so Edmondson's been doing all of the winning, whilst Bugner has just been sort of slowly but surely picking up the points, and that gives him that 1 point advantage arriving here at Silverstone. They're both a little way ahead of Max Bird in third position, the Accelerate Motorsport driver, 8 points ahead of Joel Lask, with Elliot Dalton Ayres by far the best of the HFT racing trio. Nicky Taylor having only joined the championship a week ago at Alton Park. Kyle Felvers has been fairly vocal about the fact that front-wheel drive isn't necessarily his cup of tea. You can see him there languishing towards the back end of the top 10. But Dave, I mean, what a season we've had so far, and it could not be much more finely poised in the points.
No, you're definitely right there. And as you said, spread all the way through the championship tail. It's not just a battle for, first, second or third place. I think there's multiple times where drivers are within 1 point of the driver in front. And also, there's a few drivers on the timing sheets that really, for me, are going to really throw this championship table a little bit of race. So you've got the likes of Max Bird, who is looking very, very quick indeed around this track. And you can see, sat there in third place, he can do some serious damage here tonight. You're right in what you said about Bugner. A bit of a Turkington, I think is fair to say, in British touring cars. Super consistent finisher. Let's hope we don't give him a commentator's curse there. Edmondson with the outright pace. I don't think that's going to be the key round here. I think the key is going to be all about racecraft, and we've seen how good Nicky Taylor is at that indeed.
Yeah, exactly. And Nicky was into the top 10 on his debut in the championship a week ago. At Alton Park, it was Max Edmondson, though, who did actually manage to score more points than anybody else, courtesy of that race one win from pole position. He then had his best reverse grid race of the season so far, with a 4th place finish in race 2. Scott Bugner had a 2nd in race 1 and a 5th in race 2, so he was 1 position behind Edmondson in both races, and that just allowed the Edmondson, the man second in the championship, to outscore him slightly. Will Redford then was the reverse grid race winner, having finished 9th in race 1, and that meant that he was the 3rd highest scoring driver for the night, whilst it was Elliot Dalton Ayres who was awarded the driver of the round. Dalton Ayres really impressing with a solid drive to 3rd place in the opening race, so he got the driver of the round award, well deserved. But yeah, Dave, those 3 drivers I think on screen, all of them likely to be championship contenders come Donington Park in 2 weeks time. And if they are up there contending inside the top 5 positions in the championship, there are some pretty tasty prizes up for grabs for them.
Yeah, there is indeed. So as you can see, first place prize very kindly provided by AGON, by AOC. One of their brilliant 34-inch curved gaming displays, absolutely fantastic. We've just done a few sim builds with their monitors, and they are absolutely fantastic. Exactly what you need for the best gaming possible. Second place prize, one of our rigs, SimRace 3's SR3 chassis, super rigid, exactly what you need for them direct drive setups, and really, really sturdy and very nice quality as well. Third place prize, 2 tickets to TCR meeting in 2022. So I think you can agree, Andy, there. TCT this year has been absolutely fantastic, so that's going to be an absolute spectacle to go and see. Fourth place prize, 2 hours online driver coaching. I believe that'll probably be with myself. And then also Power Maxed Racing has sent us a valet bucket for 5th place prize, as well as a valet kit for driver of the round as well. So a nice incentive for them drivers to really try and put a good performance on out there and just impress us visually on track.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, here at the VRRC, we do these things properly. Some really good prizes up for grabs for anyone who can get into the top 5 in the championship come the end of the season. Now, that ain't going to be easy to do. It's incredibly tight in that middle portion of the championship table. Right then, before we dive into the qualifying action for tonight, let's take a look, shall we, at this deceptively tricky Silverstone National Circuit.
So here we are towards the line at Silverstone National for round 4 of the Maximum Networks Civic Cup powered by VRRC. Turn 1, quite a hard initial brake, but rolling off quick to carry the speed through the corner, but not too much that we can't get the super early pick up on that throttle, and then down towards Maggotts and Beckett's pretty infamous corner at Silverstone. Really quite a difficult corner to try and find this apex down to third gear, keep looking in that air pillar and pick it up nice and early and let the car just run nicely outwards, not trying to wind too much lock on there, otherwise you'll lose a lot of speed down this straight. For all this track is only about 4 corners long. For me it's one of the most difficult to make your time and making qualifying super important here. Now down to Brooklands, yet again third gear, trying to trail brake it towards the apex and then pick up that throttle, and same again here into Luffield. Look at that, just holding the brake slightly on all the way until we get to the apex and really early on the throttle. You can see running a little bit wide there on exit, and then we're going to hug the white line all the way towards the finish line and hope that's good enough for pole in qualifying. Make sure you tune in on Wednesday night from 7:15 on VRRC's YouTube, and make sure you give this video a like and subscribe.
Qualifying underway here then on the Silverstone National Circuit for the 4th week of the VRRC Civic Cup, and Dave taking us for a lap of the Silverstone National Circuit there. You know, Dave, it's a strange one, isn't it? Because you look at a map of this place and it looks like the easiest track in the world. It's got about 3 corners, it's got to be about 70% straights and flat out stuff. Actually, to get a really good lap time out of this place is not all that easy to do, and you have to be spot on because it's such a short lap time that the times are always really close. So if you're a 10th off, that could lose you a couple of rows on the grid.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely expect to see drivers possibly battling for this pole by maybe 200th of a second. It'll be that close, very close on lap times indeed. I see Andy Dorman actually currently have done a 1:06.19, which is only 100th off what the best time was in practice. So Dorman really putting his stamp very early on in qualifying session. But Josh Martin, crucially, a driver who didn't even realise you could change tyre pressures until the start of this round. He's talking to the drivers, and it turns out he's had his tyres overflate for the entire season until he's realised he can put them down, and sure enough, look at the grip he's found. P2 there, only 800ths off pole. So Josh Martin going to be a real strong contender going into the second half of this championship.
That's fantastic, and a great example, to go slightly off topic for a second, of why it's important if you are competing in, for example, a VRRC championship, to be in the Discord, to chat to the drivers, interact with everyone, because there's so much to learn in sim racing. It's something I've realised over the last 18 months or so. If you just try and go into it blind and sort of make it up as you go along, then you're missing out on an awful lot that could make you and more competitive and make you ultimately a better driver. And Josh Martin learning now 1 or 2 things that he can do to improve his pace. It's clearly working because, as you said, he is second fastest behind Andy Dorman, another driver that I know has been tipped for good things this week. Elliot Dalton-Ayres is 3rd, Dave Buki 4th, and Eric Axelson 5th. Now, we're nearly halfway through this session, Dave. That is not the top 5 I was expecting. You have to go all the way down to 14th place to find Max Edmondson, and even Scott Bugner is only 7th fastest. In fact, he now improves to 3rd place, so that's already slightly out of date, but Edmondson needs to get a bit of a move on. Now, he was a little bit late joining the server tonight, wasn't he, because he had a couple of issues, shall we say, when it came to joining. He's in there now, but perhaps that's affected his pre-event sort of routine. Maybe it's going to take him a bit longer to get up to the speed we expect from him.
Yeah, so definitely, just a bit of inside information. Max Edmondson's actually currently not racing on his simulator. He's gone over to a friend's house because they're testing Donington or something along them lines. So he's actually in a different house on a different simulator. at the moment, so he'll be trying to adjust himself to the different setup, how the wheel feels slightly differently, but also, as he said, just that sort of slightly out of rhythm, jumping into the session really late, so we might not see him quite as quick initially as what he has been at other rounds. But knowing Max, it won't take him long to settle into things, and I imagine the later on this round goes on tonight, he'll be getting faster and faster and more competitive. But that's not what he wants at all for Scott Bugner to be currently P3 over a 10th off pole, his main championship rival.
Yeah, Bugner 1 point ahead of Edmondson. Now, Max Bird is the man third in the championship. He's only 7th fastest at the moment. Joel Lask, who is 4th in the championship, is only 10th. So actually, it seems that those who are doing well in the points are struggling a little bit for raw pace here, with the exception of Scott Bugner, the championship leader. Carl Felvers puts in a lap that puts him 8th fastest. That was a slight improvement, and he makes his way out of Copse Corner, then onto another flying lap. The good thing, I suppose, is that you'll get plenty of laps in this qualifying session. And that might well allow some of those drivers who are off to a bit of a slower start in the qualifying session a bit more time to find the ultimate pace. Dave Buki here, he's looking pretty rapid. 5th fastest for him at the moment, whilst Max Edmondson slips now down to 14th place. Now, Max is carrying 10 kilos more ballast. He is now the heaviest car on the grid. He's carrying the maximum 50 kilos of handicap weight. That might be affecting him. It's not so much, Dave, that this circuit is especially difficult to carry the weight at. It's more that, even if it's only costing you a 10th of a second, as we've made the point, that will cost you more positions here than it would on a longer lap, such as Brands Hatch or Alton Park, for example.
Yeah, so it seems like from testing with the weight, it just seems like that extra ballast, so 5th level for Edmondson here, so that's 50 kilograms. Top end speed wise, it's not a lot at all. It's probably only about 1 mile an hour, but it just seems it's that mid-range punch you get coming out of a corner is the real advantage you have with less weight. So the likes of Dorman, even Josh Martin there on 0 and on 1 level weight there, are just going to have that edge coming out onto that back straight there that we're currently looking at. And that little half a tenth, even a tenth, is worth a lot on a lap that's only, just over a minute long.
Right now, the top 18 are covered by just over 7/10 of a second, which rather proves that point, doesn't it? If you're losing a couple of tenths here and there, it will cost you. Now, Edmondson improves, though, goes 12th fastest. That's a bit more like it. It's still not pole position, but he's only 4.5 tenths off that pole position. At most other circuits, 4.5 tenths off pole could realistically put you on the second row of the grid. So Edmondson really struggling here position-wise, but actually his pace is not that bad. That was Brad Smith, I think, getting a bit sideways at Copse Corner and taking an interesting line on the exit of the turn. Andy Carroll goes 10th. There he goes through your shot at the high-speed Copse Corner. 1 or 2 coming back out of the pit lane. Looks like the 3 HFT racing drivers are getting themselves together for a bit of slipstreaming qualifying here towards the end of the session. But it still is Andy Dorman who they're all chasing. And Andy has been in the pits for quite some time. So that's some confidence that day. He set the pole position. Doesn't hold pole by a big margin. 88 thousandths of a second over Josh Martin. But Andy, for the time being, happy to sit in the pit lane and wait it out.
Yeah, you know what? That could be a driver that goes, you know what? I've put absolutely everything on the line. I've hooked the lap up and there's nothing more that I can do. Some drivers like to have that sort of, it's not an attitude, but right, I'm going to go and chill, get ready for the race. If someone beats me, fair enough. The only thing I would say is, with this track, you know how important the slipstream can be, Andy. And sometimes you just find yourself lucky out on track, get a bit of slipstream, and you can find half a tenth to a tenth just doing nothing but other than just being a little bit closer to a car in front. So it can have its advantage, but looking at the lap times, honestly, I'd be surprised if anyone can actually pip Dorman there. That's a fantastic lap time, and he's putting a stellar drive there to be P1 that early on as well into qualifying. He posted it almost straight away, so top job, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant effort that, and others try as they might, just can't quite get anywhere near him, or can't quite get near enough to him at least. Max Edmondson, I notice, is back down to 13th place now, just ahead, actually, of a new driver into the championship, George Alp Williams, who is not new to Honda Civic racing by any stretch of the imagination, though. George, a front-runner of the Real World Civic Cup. We've got more and more of these Real World Civic Cup racers coming and having a go of the sim racing series, and George, the latest convert, and I think it's fair to say he's enjoying himself so far.
Yeah, he is definitely. I think probably a little bit surprised about how close it is. You know, you're racing real life, and there's normally a few drivers in and around that sort of 1/10 away margin. But I mean, to be 15th place, Chris Shepherd, only half a second off pole, and he's in 15th place. I mean, it is ridiculously close here, and just shows how important just getting absolutely every ounce of the track right really is, because the difference between half a tenth can cost you about 5 positions.
Well, you said to me off air before we went live this evening that anyone within half a second of pole position today could probably win the race.
Yeah, I did say that. Yeah.
that means most of the field then basically could probably win the races tonight. I mean, we are in for quite the show, aren't we?
Yeah, so I did a bit of coaching with Nicky Taylor before we went live tonight, and we were racing, and I found about half a second of pace advantage on him, and yet 3-4 laps consistent battling, I just couldn't simply pull away even though I had the pace advantage. So that's what sort of told me that half a second gap, with the way the slipstream is, it's really going to require drivers to pick their battles really closely, and maybe actually this is one of the first times we might see drivers trying to work with each other and pull away in packs rather than everyone just battling outright, because if everyone battles outright, as I said before, the likes of Chris Shepherd and Brad Smith could very quickly find themselves running right up near the front.
Brilliant shot there from on board with George Alp Williams. He's on slightly cold tyres, having just come out of the pit lane. He's got time for one flying lap before the checkered flag falls, and just a little bit of lift-off oversteer there through Copse Corner. He just had to sort of steer into that a little bit. That'll cost him some speed on the exit, but he heads out of Beckett's, down the Wellington Straight, back towards the left-hander at Brooklands. Just a 2-sector circuit this, because it's so short. You can see in that first sector he is 0.6 of a second down, so that moment that he had through first corner, Copse has not helped him, and then he leans on the right rear tyre and gets it all wrong, because that right rear tyre will take an awfully long time to warm up. It's only really used once around the whole lap, and that is down at Brooklands Corner, and so it'll take you a good 3 or 4 laps, I'd imagine, to get that right rear into the ideal operating window, and so that's something to watch for at the start of the races if they start going side by side through there on cold tyres. Joel Lask, by the way, one of very few people able to improve his lap time here towards the end of the session. He jumps up into 4th position. Seriously good effort that was a number of positions gained, and just at the right time, Dave, because the checkered flag is now out.
Yeah, what a fantastic quali session that has been. Drivers about as close as we could possibly hope for what I hope to be an absolute fantastic race here. And as I said before, what a great job by all the drivers. That is not easy under the pressure these drivers are under, to go out and put laps like they are as close together. We couldn't hope for anything more the way this quali's been. And I believe Andy there has just gone on mute. But meanwhile, we're going to try and get a quick word with Andy Dorman after this quick ad break.
Welcome back to the Silverstone National Circuit, where a very exciting and competitive qualifying session for the 4th week of racing in the Civic Cup has just been completed, and for the first time all season, it is not Max Edmondson on pole position. Far from it, actually. The championship contender having a bit of a rough qualifying session. He'll be deep in the order, and instead it's Andy Dorman who gets his first pole position of the season. Andy joins us in the commentary box now. That was quite some effort, and you did it really early in the session. Are you surprised how quickly you were able to string that lap together?
Yeah, it was. I couldn't believe how easy it was so early on. I was expecting to have to fight to get near the front.
everyone else fighting to try and keep up with you, which they ultimately were not able to do. Pole position is nice to get, of course it is, but it's going to be almost impossible to break away around this circuit, I would imagine. So what's the game plan going into this first 20-minute race?
Just try and stay out of trouble for the first couple of laps and see where we end up.
Simple as that, hey? I'm not convinced it's going to be all that easy. I mean, that slipstream, how powerful is the slipstream around here? Because it is a circuit known for that sort of slipstreamy action, isn't it? Do you think that it's going to be possible to pull fully alongside people down that back straight, for example?
Yeah, I think the slipstream is going to work really well, but I've not tried it out yet, so I'm not sure.
Okay, fair enough. Well, okay, that's the slipstream then. We'll learn that as we go. What about the start of the race? Because, again, getting these things off the line isn't all that easy, is it?
No, we seem to be managed all right in the last few weeks, so we'll just see how we go.
All right, well, Andy, we'll let you go and continue with your preparations for the first race. But huge congratulations on breaking the Max Edmondson pole position streak, and best of luck for the first race.
Yep, thanks a lot.
Andy Dorman then on the pole position for our first race of the night here on the Silverstone National Circuit. He got it, Dave, by just under a 10th of a second. And yeah, I think he may be a little bit nervous about this now. The reality of what's about to happen perhaps dawning on him. It is going to be a real dogfight out there, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And you know what? It's a massive confidence boost for a driver to go out and put it on pole ahead of the other drivers. It's almost that bit of a statement going, you know what, boys? I've got a bit of pace on you, so I'm going to be, getting me head down and going. The only thing I would say, sometimes Andy's a bit of a reserve driver, struggles with that early aggression. So I really want to see Andy really dominate the start of this race, get nicely on his lines and make sure he tells the drivers that that's where he's going and help himself pull away. Josh Martin is a smart driver. I imagine he'll probably want to work with Andy as quick as he possibly can. And we've seen Scott. He's a super consistent finisher, and I imagine the likes of Scott won't be taking any excessive risk here, knowing how far Max is back down the grid.
It is an interesting one, isn't it, though, because with it being very slipstream heavy, this circuit, and we're expecting a lead pack of cars, basically, we're expecting overtaking to be not easy, certainly possible. Your racecraft will be put to the test here, and it's tempting with this kind of racing to say, oh, the more aggressive drivers are naturally going to find their way to the front and be able to stay there. But actually, in my experience, at least of one-make racing on the sim around this circuit, sometimes patience can actually serve you better. If you sit behind a group of battling cars, they'll likely come to blows at some point. At the very least, they'll hold each other up, and that might just give you the opportunity to get the run on them. We'll see which of the two mindsets it is that will come out on top. Will it be aggression, or will it be the canny drivers who are willing to let the race come to them, who end up at the front at the end of 20 minutes of racing then in round number 7 of the VRRC Civic Cup? Andy Dorman on pole position on the right of screen. Josh Martin on the left is second on the grid. The championship contender Max Edmondson down in 13th place, whilst the points leader Scott Bugner lines up on the outside of row number 2. Let's go racing then for the 7th time this season in the VRRC Civic Cup. The red lights go out. We're away and racing at Silverstone, and Josh Martin goes nowhere. A terrible start from second on the grid. That means Andy Dorman will be uncontested down to Copse Corner for the first time. Let's see who's going to be there in second place. Looks like that is Bugner and Lask, isn't it? Second and third. Max Bird up to fourth. And a disastrous start there for Josh Martin. Luckily, as we've said, we anticipate you'll be able to overtake pretty well here at Silverstone. But already, Dave, Josh has made his life that little bit harder.
Yeah, that's not the start you wanted. And look at this, Bugner already looking like he's showing his nose up the inside of Dorman, down that back straight, and there's a collision in the background. That looked like that was Brad Smith driving into the side of Boogie, but Boogie must have had a sideways moment on the way down it there. Now, that's not what we'd like to see either. Andy Carroll with a spin-off onto the side as well. Whether that was a tap or just losing the back end, we're not too sure. But needless to say, Dorman has managed to keep his nose out in front, and I believe there's more collisions happening as well, but that looks like it's all side to side, all firm and fair racing. Edmondson has managed to get himself up into P10 as well, so brilliant effort by Edmondson, and I imagine he'll be focusing on really working with Nicky Taylor there in front. Scott Bugner, what a start that's been there. Josh Martin dropping back down the grid. Look at Bugner, how aggressive he is on the way towards the corners underneath Dorman, running slightly wide there. We said regarding track limits, it is definitely faster if you don't run out onto the green. The green slows the car down, so if drivers are seen doing it, it isn't classed as gaining an advantage, hence why they won't be penalised if they do it either.
Side by side here, Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Josh Martin. That's Dalton-Ayres at the inside of Martin for 6th position, so he's lost another place to Axelsen since halfway around the opening lap, and he'll just about keep Dalton-Ayres at bay as they head down into Brooklands corner. There is Max Edmondson again to the outside, this time of Nicky Taylor. He tried this a lap ago. There was a little bit of contact between the two of them at the apex. He's sideways on that cold right rear tyre, but this time manages to stand his ground, gets the inside line for Luffield, and Edmondson goes 9th. So this is, as you said, going really well for Edmondson. He's still well and truly in that lead pack, and well, he'll be trying to progress even further up it, especially given the fact that Scott Bugner currently runs in 2nd place. Lap number 2 in the books then. It's Dorman that leads the way. Bugner 2nd, Last 3rd, Bird 4th, Axelsen 5th. But the whole field, Dave, as we expected, pretty much in one long line.
Yeah, definitely. Look, this Nicky Taylor's going to have a run here up the inside of Max Edmondson. This is going to be a fantastic move. Nicky's going to hold it around the outside. This is where it's key for Edmondson to go, you know what, I've lost this position, tuck back in and try and not lose the momentum of that car. That 50 kilograms of weight can really hinder this car, especially if he's not managing to get the exits. Somehow he's actually managed to hold it round the outside, I believe, of Nicky Taylor though. But you can see them battling just for 2 corners has really sacrificed the run down the straight. This is Josh Martin going to try and set up an overtake. Oh, and I believe that was lag. So a massive lag spike there from Josh Martin, and unfortunately that's cost him his race, and luckily it hasn't cost Eric Axelsen. So Eric Axelsen now up into P5. Fantastic drive but so far by him.
That's a shame though, isn't it? Josh Martin, there was so much potential in this race, starting on the front row, but a bad start, and now, as you said, that lag down at Brooklands corner, taking him essentially out of contention. He's still going, but with a damaged car and down in 5th place. Dorman then still leading the way, on board with Eric Axelsen in 5th position, and they make their way down towards Mackett and Beckett's. Now, that fastest lap has been snatched by Scott Bugner in 2nd place. That is worth an extra championship point, and I think it's going to go to a few different drivers over the course of the race because of the way that slipstream works. If you happen to hook up a particularly good lap and get a particularly good tow, then you have every chance of setting the fastest lap of the race. So I would imagine we'll see that chop and change between a few drivers before the checkered flag. Elliot Dalton-Ayres, meanwhile, still working over Kyle Felvers here for 6th position, and would you believe it, Dave, right behind him is Max Edmondson, who just keeps on creeping up the order.
Yeah, he does indeed. He's just shown why he really does deserve to be at the front end of this championship battle. A fantastic driver, but I tell you what, this is not doing him any favours battling with Nicky Taylor. Nicky Taylor has got every right to battle as hard as he can, but that is seeming to slow them down off the back of P7. Look at this, Nicky Taylor gets up the inside line of Max Edmondson here, so he's going to have a good drive. Will he be brave enough to put his nose down the inside here? He is indeed. Edmondson's going to come across the nose a little bit, but you can see both drivers very, very skilled indeed, managing not to have a collision here. And this is fantastic racing to see. Nicky Taylor there with a little bump, just saying, Max, come on, we need to work together, let's go. So let's see if they can really do the damage here and close back in on that P7 of Elliot Dalton-Ayres.
I take your point there. Yes, they should be working together, but I would argue that that's more on Nicky than Max. There's not much Max can do here, really, is there? He's just sort of going about his business, and Nicky's the one that keeps on sending it up the inside into every braking zone. It looks like now maybe he's got the memo and was giving Max a little bit of a shove down the Wellington straight there, but you could see the way that they had now sort of been disengaged from this group of cars ahead. Over a second now between Elliot Dalton-Ayres in 7th and Max Edmondson in 8th position. Mark Hughes, meanwhile, dicing away with George Alt Williams. Has he gone through? I think he has. Well, sort of. George is lingering on the outside line and will try and stand his ground all the way around the outside at Woodcote and down towards Copse Corner. But the outside at Copse is not usually the place that you want to be. Bit of shuffling going on towards the front as well there as Buckner was out wide, but great racing all the way through the order here. We might actually have our first lead change because Scott Buckner is up the inside of Andy Dorman at Beckett's, and he will go through. So Dorman for the first time loses the lead, but immediately Dave tries to fight back down the Wellington straight.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant move up the inside by Andy. Just slowed the car down a little bit and got that steering super straight on the exit, and that's going to give him a great run down the straight here. We're just trying to look through from Max Bird's car, and Dorman looks like he's gone a little bit wide. That's going to leave the door open for Joe Last. Joe Last doesn't need a second invitation there, putting up the inside, but Max Bird's looking at this going, you know what, I'm going to try and follow Andy through here, and possibly might get Joe Lask on the exit. So these cars really providing some fantastic racing here. And I tell you what, this is exactly what Scott Bugner will want to see in his mirror there, nearly pulling away over half a second already in one lap.
Yeah, this is the only way you're going to break the toe at the front of the field here, if they start squabbling over second. And you're right, he was 8/10 faster than Andy Dorman on that lap, and he's going to keep on extending that margin because still these three drivers are practically on top of each other as they head down to Magnussen Beckett. That was a bit of a bump from Max Bird onto the tail of Andy Dorman's car, which almost sent Dorman sideways into Joel Lask. In the end, Dorman settles in second, Lask third, and Bird fourth, with Eric Axelsen, you can just see in the mirror, looming large in fifth position as well. Now, will they choose to work together down the back straight? Of course they won't. Here comes Lask up the inside line. He wants that second place, whilst George Art Williams is in strife up at Beckett's, dropping down to 16th.
Yeah, I could be wrong as well. Just looking on the server details we've got, I believe it was a collision with Josh Martin and another very good friend. So that I imagine will be quite a friendly battle there going on. But meanwhile, we'll jump back on board with Max Bird, and it's almost a mirror image of exactly the lap that was happening on the previous lap. So Max Bird couldn't get anything done on that previous lap, but we did see him get a very good run indeed through turn one. But is he going to try and make this 3 wide going down towards turn one? This is very brave indeed. Andy Dorman is trying to leave the door as open as possible, and Joe Lask had absolutely nowhere to go. And look who is about to absolutely capitalise on this. Eric Axelsen from P5 all the way up into P3 straight away. What a fantastic lap that's been.
It could even be P2 because he's on the outside here into Beckett's corner of Max Bird, but he can't do it, gets elbowed out wide a bit, and actually will lose a place now, I think, to Joel Lask as they head down the Wellington Straight. But that was a great example there of what I was sort of saying before the race. There are two ways of doing this. You can be aggressive and get stuck in like Max Bird did, taking it 3 wide into Cop's corner, or you can sit back, let them all trip over each other and pick up the pieces, as Eric Axelsen did when they came out of Cop's corner. Okay, it didn't quite get him second, but he still gained a place into 4th position and is well and truly in this fight for 2nd place. But look, the leader, Scott Bugner, 2.1, nearly 2.2 seconds now up the road from this lot. And I don't think over the next 11 minutes they're going to be able to catch him. So that could have been a defining moment in this race for Scott Bugner, and maybe for the championship, because a race win here with Edmondson down in 8th position could be really helpful for the current points leader. Remember, he's 1 point ahead of Edmondson coming into this second half of the season. And at the moment, Edmondson, look, is still battling away with Nicky Taylor. They're side by side again at Copse.
Yeah, fantastic racing. This is exactly what we want to see. Door handle to door handle. I tell you what, this group, what's that? P2 all the way down to P7. What was I saying about half a second can take the victory? We're on here at the moment. Scott Bugner, right in what you said, 2 seconds up the road, looking like he's really starting to pull away now. But this, from P2 to P7, this is anyone's game at the moment. Kyle Felvers can quite easily see himself, 10 minutes left of this race, find himself in P2.
Yes, definitely, or indeed find himself pointing the wrong way when it all goes wrong, because this is getting very touchy-feely now. There's some contact. That's Bird into Axelsen, and Axelsen will save it. Bird then gets a bit of a shove from Elliot Daltonez as well. This can't last, surely. We're only halfway through the race, and they're starting now to get a little bit rough with each other. Let's play nice here, kids. Down towards Cop's corner they go. Which way are they all going to go? Daltonez looking to the inside line. There is Bugner. He's loving this. He's escaping by a huge chunk of time each lap. And in fact, his teammate Joel Lask in 2nd place also now starting to make a bit of a break. It's Bird and Axelsen side by side for 3rd. Daltonez and Felvers side by side for 5th place. And Andy Dorman, who's been sort of shuffled to the back of that group, now starting to get involved again as well.
Yeah, and actually, I tell you a driver who I'm trying to keep an eye on. That driver there in the leopard print car, Reese Bell, really starting to take some chunk of time out of both Edmondson and Taylor. So Reese Bell looking like, if Nicky Taylor and Edmondson are not careful here, might actually start to have the speed over them and get involved as well, which will be a 3-way battle. And the last thing Edmondson will want is to then have another car to contend with, as well as Nicky Taylor, who is already making his job hard enough to try and rescue this championship.
Yeah, most definitely. Out of Luffield we go, on board with Elliot Dalton-Ayres then. We are, as I said, into the second half of this race. Max Edmondson and Nicky Taylor. Every time I look at their names on the timing tower, they're swapping positions for 8th place. But again, they're not gaining on this group. They should be taking a second a lap out of this group whilst they all fight. They're not, because they're too busy fighting over 8th position. As entertaining as I'm sure that battle is, it's perhaps not the best thing here for Edmondson's championship hopes. Oh, Axelsen almost up the inside of Max Bird there, but Max is able to close the door as they head towards Maggins and Beckett. The race leader, Scott Bugner, nearly, well, he is now 3 seconds clear of Joel Lask, and I reckon Joel has probably broken the toe as well here. He's 1.5 seconds now ahead of Max Bird, Eric Axelsen, Carl Felvis, Elliot Dalton-Ayres, etc. I'm not convinced they're going to be able to get back at Lask here either, so this could now, realistically, Dave, become a fight for the bottom step of the podium only.
Yeah, could indeed. You're right about Joel. I did say before this coming, Reese Bell, very, very late on the brakes there. I thought that was an imminent collision there. Just managed to take the back, and I tell you what, Nicky Taylor will have probably been looking in his mirror there thinking, oh heck, brace for impact here. That was a definite collision course, but luckily no collision involved, and Nicky Taylor still absolutely glued to the back of Edmondson's car. But you're right in what you said before, Andy. Every lap, Edmondson Taylor's name seems to be the opposite way around, so what a fantastic battle this has proven to be. And for all its 9th and 8th place, it's still fantastic racing all the way down the grid.
Axelsen up alongside Max Bird now for 3rd position, and tries to get to the outside line into Beckett's corner. Now, you can make this work sometimes, either by carrying the momentum around the outside or doing exactly what Eric Axelsen did there and turning into the late apex, getting the switchback and carrying the momentum down the Wellington straight. There you can see Carl Felvis with the grandstand view. He's going to get a shove here from his HFT Racing teammate Elliot Dalton-Ayres, and they're both going to try and capitalise on this side-by-side battle ahead. Axelsen late on the brakes, but he's on the outside line. Oh, there's inevitable contact. Again, Axelsen does well to save it. And now Felvis trying to hunt around on the outside. Max Bird runs out wide. There's a gap on the inside for Felvis, and he gives him a bit of a hip and shoulder at the apex as well. So Axelsen goes 3rd, and actually Felvis is up into 4th place. Dave, what is Kyle Felvis doing inside the top 5 in a Civic Cup race? This is not what we've become used to seeing. He's clearly getting to grips with that car. He sort of thought he would.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly pace in the driver, and this is just his racecraft, his raw racecraft feeling. We've seen how good he is before. There's no room there on the inside, but that's also sacrificed his exit. So Elliot Dalton is actually going to have a look now up the inside of his teammate. 1 lap, and there's 4 position changes already. He's going to try and do it around the outside. And Andy Dorman, look at this. Super wide run into this last corner onto the back straight. This is going to be a great run, but I could be wrong. I don't think he's going to have anywhere to go here, Andy.
Well, there is an inviting gap up the inside of these 2 HFT Racing drivers, but Dorman, interestingly, not going for it. Now, you did say that he's not known for being the most aggressive driver. He, at the moment, seems happy to just sit, bide his time, wait and see how this all plays out, because, I mean, this has got accident written all over it, hasn't it? It's very entertaining to watch, but you just, it's one tiny false move away from sending all 4 of those cars spinning off the road, at which point Dorman would be there to pick up the pieces. So right now, I think maybe he's got the right idea. Just sit back, wait, see how this plays out. We've still got just over a quarter of the race to go. 5.25 minutes left on the clock, 13 laps in the book, and it is Scott Bugner who leads by 3.5 seconds over Joel Lask in second, who is 2.5 now ahead of this almighty fight for 3rd place.
Yeah, what a fantastic battle this is. And you said 4 cars. It's almost imminent to see all 4 cars go off the track, but isn't that exactly what we watch racing for? Realistically, it's as close battling as you can possibly have, on the verge of being absolutely a catastrophe. So at the moment, this is exactly what I wanted to see really from this. For me, Andy just sometimes setting a few of them corners up a little bit too wide, thinking he's going to get a better run, and if I'm honest, doesn't really seem to be gaining that much from it. But what a drive for me from Eric Axelsen. Some of their moves and putting the trust in Max Bird not to run him off wide. Absolutely fantastic racing and top drive so far today.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Eric Axelsen, who in the past has been a little bit like Andy Dorman, actually. He's been criticised, perhaps that's the wrong word, but it's been noted that he doesn't get too stuck into these side-by-side battles. He's not that aggressive, but actually has had some real good controlled aggression in this race. And indeed all season, actually, he's been notably more aggressive, and it's paying off for him into that third position at the moment. Josh Martin, I'm afraid, his race going from bad to worse here. He slips back behind George Alp Williams. Both of these drivers have had their issues in this race. 14th for Alp Williams and Josh Martin in 15th. Josh Martin, though, I would say here, Dave, is a good shout for a race 2 win, because remember, it's a full grid reverse, so the 20 at the moment then would be reversed. That would put Martin 6th on that race 2 grid. We know he's got good pace, just never really was able to show it in this one.
Yeah, definitely, and I could be wrong. I think a few of these incidents seem to be caused by his internet connection, so hopefully he can get that sorted out for race 2. But without doubt, my money is probably on Dave Bookie for race 2. We saw him up in that real top-end fight at the start of the race, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, saw him drop back really quickly. But we know he's got the pace in the car, and I reckon he's probably the one to watch come race 2. Going to be starting pole. Yeah, he's probably where my money is.
That's a good point, actually. Qualified well for this race as well, didn't he, Dave? But unfortunately was off before they were even halfway around the first lap. Right, Max Edmondson side by side with someone, but it's not Nicky Taylor. I don't know how I feel about this. Nicky Taylor's got ahead of him and has actually started to pull clear now from Edmondson, who instead has got his mirrors full of Reece Bell in that leopard print car. So Edmondson slipping down to 9th, not having the race that he needed here. Bugner on course for maximum points with the race win, and Max Edmondson down in 9th, although I noticed Nicky Taylor running wide there at Beckett, so that might just allow Edmondson to close back in again. Down into Brooklands we go, just ahead of this group then. Andy Dorman ahead now of Felvis as well, so Andy Dorman into that 6th position, whilst Elliot Dalton-Ayres tries to get after Max Bird. Is it me, Dave, or is Eric Axelson now starting to drop this group as well? 7/10 is not a big cushion, but given how close this race has been, that's actually a relatively comfortable margin for 3rd place.
Yeah, it just seems like there's a few drivers really starting to get into a bit of rhythm, as you said, just settling in, letting the race come to them a little bit more. The likes of even Elliot here behind Max Bird, it doesn't seem excessively aggressive. I feel like Elliot's quite happy just to be behind Max and push him on and really try and close back onto the back of Elliot. Andy Dorman last lap getting past Kyle Felvis, and if you look, Nicky Taylor, as soon as he stopped battling as much with the likes of Max Edmondson, is now actually really starting to progress onto the back of Felvis, and this could turn to Nicky Taylor battling for P10 to now battling even up to P6.
True, actually. They're all just starting to come together a bit, aren't they? And this will help that, because Elliot Dalton-Ayres is alongside Max Bird for 4th place now as they head down towards Brooklands. I think we're going to be starting the final lap this time. It's going to be touch and go as to whether they get one more in after this. Depends when the leader crosses the line. If it is 2 more laps, then I absolutely agree. This whole group is going to bunch back together again. Max Bird around the outside of Dalton-Ayres there to hang on to the position, and does indeed stay in that 4th position on board with Dalton-Ayres. Better traction off Luffield, tries to get to the inside. Max Bird knew that was coming though and pulled over to the inside to cover it. The leader goes through. There is less than a minute on the clock, so this will be the final lap of the race, and still anyone's 4th place here really. Top 3 seem fairly settled, but 4th place on back could all still change.
Oh, Elliot just slightly misjudged that there. He was trying to get the undercut and it's actually cost him. Look at this, Andy Dorman now up the inside of Elliot Dalton. There's a bit of contact. So there's my motto for Andy Dorman out the window, saying I don't think he's quite aggressive enough. Up the inside he goes of Elliot, hands back the favour from Elliot, just trying to squeeze him down into there. And who's that? I believe that's Kyle Felvis now all over the back of Elliot as well, trying to get amongst that. And look at that, Nicky Taylor flashing his lights. He knows if this kicks off in front, he's got every chance to gain 2, possibly even 3 positions here. Here we go into the last corners.
That was close. That looked like Felvis was going to send it up the inside of Dorman, but Dorman actually was really late on the brakes and held on to the position. The time ticks down to 0. All this going on, remember, for 4th place on back. Scott Bugner is going to win the race by nearly 4.5 seconds. Not necessarily what we expected, and it's his first victory of the season. What a time to do it. Joel Last comes home in second place. Eric Axelson will be third. Fourth, Max Bird. Fifth, Dorman, side by side between the teammates there for sixth. It is Felvers ahead of Dalton Ayres by 54 one-thousandths of a second, with Nicky Taylor eighth, actually. So the three HFT boys, sixth, seventh, and eighth, respectively. Max Edmondson only ninth, and Reese Bell in 10th position. Chris Shepherd comes home 11th. There's Josh Martin down in 15th position. Andy Carroll 16th after their early issues. What race that was. What a drive from Scott Bugner. Finally gets that monkey off his back. He gets that first victory of the season. And yeah, Dave, what a time to do it. Max Edmondson all the way down in 9th position, and even Max Bird off the podium as well. That could be a really important race, that for Scott Bugner as far as his championship is concerned. We'll have all of the reaction to what was a hugely exciting first race of the night on the other side of this break. Well, the Silverstone National Circuit has absolutely delivered everything that it promised to. Some really great racing in the first race of the night here in the VRRC Civic Cup, and we're already looking forward to the reversed grid antics of race number 2 coming up in a few minutes' time. Before that, though, let's have a chat with our 3 podium finishers from race number 1, and we'll start, appropriately enough, with Scott Bugner. And Scott, finally, you get that first victory of the season. You've been Mr. Consistency up to this point, never finishing worse than 5th place in any race, but you finally got the race win, and what a time to do it, with Max Edmondson so far not having the best of nights.
Yeah, it's about time. It's just all about sort of following, I think it was Andy to start off with, and I just felt like sort of a quarter way through I had the pace, and I thought if I just go for it now and hope for the best, and it worked out. And I saw Max was down in sort of 9th or 10th, and I thought this is the best chance I've got now to gain as many points as I can.
Yeah, and it is crucial, isn't it, as a championship contender, which you clearly are, you're the points leader. It's crucial that you're able to capitalise on those opportunities when they come up. So I don't know how much you knew about, whether Max was struggling for pace this week, but you must have realised when he wasn't up there on the front row of the grid, okay, this is the time I have to do well in this race now.
Absolutely, yeah. It was one of them where, I knew he was struggling a little bit with the tyres and his race pace. So that's why I thought I better capitalise where I can, because, I might gain weight for Croft and Donington, so that might sort of swing it back the other way. So I need to gain as many points as I can when I can.
That's a good point, actually. With that in mind, then, race 2 also needs to be a good one if possible. You've been a bit of a master of these reverse grid races. As I said, you've had a 4th, a 3rd, and a 5th in the 3 so far. Chances of another podium here tonight?
Don't jinx me. I don't think we'll be getting a podium with how close the grid is, but hopefully, if I can get back in the top 10 or be anywhere near around about Max, then that's a bonus.
Excellent stuff. Well, either way, congratulations on the race victory, mate, and hopefully we'll be chatting to you again after race 2.
Thank you very much.
Scott Bugner then gets himself his first victory of the season. Dave Marshall has got our runner-up finisher.
Yeah, we do indeed. Joel Lask, a P2, not bad at all, I would say that. A really difficult race, I would say, at the start there. A lot of attacks coming from different sides. But I tell you what, just about quarter of that race was really where you came on point, just managing to get them lap times and really put significant time between you and the rest of the pack. I take it from that point onwards, the job was about done for you.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, right at the start it was great to have a little battle, but I knew as soon as you start battling you can start losing time, so just tried to push along behind Scott the best I could and try and gap everyone, but we all got bunched up, and then it was just a task of trying to get past and make sure we gap the cars ahead.
Yeah, and I'll ask the same as Andy. Obviously, race 2, we never quite know what's going to happen with these full reverse grid races. I take it's just going to be picking your battles and trying to bring home the most points you possibly can. Is it going to be a particularly difficult track for doing that, with overtaking being as easy as it is round here?
I think so. As soon as you manage to get past someone, it becomes quite difficult to hold that position without 3 other cars coming right up behind you and trying to take you as well. So it's very easy to lose time, but it's very easy to gain time. So just got to be consistent around this, put in the lap times, and hopefully we can push right up to the front.
Well, fantastic result there, Joel. Brilliant result on getting a P2, and looking forward to seeing what you can do in this second race.
Appreciate it. Cheers.
Spot on, and we'll hand it back over to Andy for our P3 man, Eric Axelsen.
Yeah, Eric Axelsen gets himself onto the podium in the first race of the night here at Silverstone. Eric, that was a really good drive from you, actually, and it looked like you were being patient for a bit there at the start, but then in the second half of the race, you were pretty ruthless.
Yeah, that was a really close and hard and tough race, but I've never been happier with P3. It's really close.
Yeah, it's so close out there. Is this the kind of racing that you enjoy, this slipstreamy side-by-side racing?
Of course it is, yes. Really tough, clean race. That's the best.
Well, it was certainly entertaining to watch. Glad to hear that you enjoyed being part of it as well. Eric, we'll let you go because we're less than a minute away from the start of race 2, but congratulations on what I think is your first podium of the season. Well done.
Thank you, Andy.
Eric Axelsen then third position, and indeed will need to make his exit now to prepare for the second race. It's a full reversed grid as always, so 20 finishes, well 20 starters in race 1, 20 of them get reversed for the start of race 2. So Dave Buki, who finished last, is on pole position with Brad Smith alongside. A couple of quick drivers there at the front ahead of Simon Thorpe and John Jones, Andy Carroll and Josh Martin, another to watch for, I think, in that Motor Swan liveried car in 6th. Whilst the podium finishes from race 1, Axelsen, Lask and Bugner are 18th, 19th and 20th respectively on the grid. 20 more minutes on the clock then. Reversed grid action here from the Silverstone National Circuit, about to get underway. The red lights go on. They're out now. Away we go. Not a great start there from Simon Thorpe, third on the grid. The front row men are away pretty well though. Another slightly tardy start from Josh Martin, 2 in 6th. He will lose a couple of positions into Copse Corner, but no doubt about the race leader. It's Buki that leads the way. Second place Brad Smith. Smith already looking to try and get the overlap as they head out of Copse Corner though. All safely through turn 1 down towards Maggots and Beckett's, and this is where we saw a little bit of trouble at the start of race number 1. Let's hope they all get through here cleanly. Buki arrives as the leader. Smith around the outside. There's a car on the grass further back. Oh, that nearly ended in tears. And in fact, we do have a bit of contact there, Dave, between the teammates. Bugner and Lask getting sideways at the back of the pack.
Yeah, I thought that was who it was. I didn't want to say it, but Max Bird there, look, as well, struggling as well. So a spin there with Reese Bell off. Edmondson up into P8 as well. So Edmondson with an absolute killer of a start, really making some really good headway. But crucially, up in front, it's Max Bird, it's Dave Buki who's managed to get quite a significant jump over Brad Smith there and looking very, very good indeed. So Buki doing exactly what he needs to do on that opening lap. Just needs to get his head down now. Not looking at his mirrors,
no.
and that's a nightmare of a crash. That is absolutely horrific, with a driver ending up in the pit wall, and somehow, I was just about to say Kenny Press missing all the other drivers. I would imagine that is probably going to have to be a safety car that's called out, but we'll wait and see what the race director is. It is indeed. So a virtual safety car has been called. Not what Buki wanted at all, and there's a collision. So there's a collision between John Jones, and I believe that was the back of George Alt Williams, was that maybe? So George maybe not realising that was a safety car. I imagine that John will be given permission to get back through the grid there if there's enough time possible.
Well, depends how badly damaged his car is, because he did headbutt that concrete wall as a result of that. That was just some people slowing down a bit more quickly than others for the virtual safety car, and it did catch John out, so damage done to his car. Yeah, huge accident there. I was started by Kenny Press getting tagged sideways by somebody. I didn't quite spot who it was, but as he got turned sideways, he was running about 5th or 6th at the time. And as a result, most of the pack were bearing down on him, and he collected a few drivers, including Kyle Felvis, I noticed. So Kyle Felvis with damage has dropped down into 18th place. John Jones there on the grass going down the Wellington Straight as he tries to figure out whether he's going to be able to continue in the race. But that was a really, really dramatic end to the opening lap. It's an unfortunate end to the opening lap, and it means that we are behind the virtual safety car here for at least one lap. Looks like we're going to have a second one as well, because they're still going slowly and weaving side to side as they come across the start-finish line. So it's Buki that leads, Smith second, Andy Carroll in third position. George Alt Williams fourth, ahead of Max Edmondson fifth. So Dave, Max Edmondson, the big winner there, he would have been right in the middle of that shunt going through Woodcote Corner, but provided he didn't have any contact on his way through, he might be in the pound seat here because he's into fifth position. He gained places out of that. That was a lucky break for the championship contender.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this, to be fair, is playing right in the hands of Edmondson. Look at Bugner all the way back down, still in P14. So this is a really good chance for Edmondson to crawl some absolutely crucial points for his championship and just sort of take away that big gap that he managed to crawl. There's John Jones, look. So John Jones is being allowed through the pack. Obviously, after that collision, I believe it was with George and the back of John Jones. So there's the right thing to do. John is going to go back and reclaim his position. It was good to see John actually put in, for me, a really, really strong qualifying position as well, and was very, very good indeed there. So there you go. He's rejoined his position back behind Andy Carroll, and I believe we're all set and ready to be going racing again after this lap finishes.
Yep, so John Jones then up into fourth place, which is where he'll take the restart, and that is indeed just around the corner, literally, because they're coming through the final couple of corners now, and Dave Buki will be released at full racing speed any moment now. Dave Buki, former champion in the real world Civic Cup, of course, and yet to win in the VRRC's example of the championship. What's he going to be able to do here then? Dave Buki's best finish, he has had a podium, got a podium in race 1 at Thruxton. Can he now get onto the top step of the podium after what was a third place a couple of weeks ago? Safety car, virtual safety car has ended, and the field makes its way down towards Copse Corner then. Buki leading the way, Smith there in second place, Carroll third, John Jones, as you said, Dave, retaking his fourth position as the safety car ended.
Yeah, definitely. And I tell you what, that was George Alt Williams that I believe was just pushing it far too hard on cold tyres there, running very, very wide on turn 1. And look at this, John Jones now absolutely in clear air in P4, now fighting with Andy Carroll. I believe it was Buki and Smith there that got a little bit involved at the front of the grid. Buki now defending all the way on the inside, you see. Brad Smith having a little look, but there's no real room there heading down towards Brooklands here. So it's going to be interesting. Brad Smith's going to try and all around the outside. Look at that on cold tyres, and I would imagine Andy Carroll might have a significant overlap as well on his outside. And I tell you what, there's some carnage going on behind with places going left, right and centre, but Scott Bugner has managed to find his way up into P13 now, and who's that dropping all the way back? Joel Lask dropping all the way back there, so we didn't see what happened there, but that's not a good start whatsoever for Joel Lask to restart his race.
George Alt Williams for the pit lane as well. Buki sideways in the lead, gets rear-ended slightly there by Brad Smith. That delays them both. So John Jones, who's now into third, closing on the pair of them. But look who is fourth. Max Edmondson then into fourth position. And as long as he can keep the pace up throughout the entire duration of the race, he might just be still an outside bet for a race win. Brad Smith, far too much curb at Beckett's corner, bounces out wide through the tight right-hander. That allows Buki to get away, and John Jones to close in on him slightly. Further back, here is Simon Thorpe with Carl Felvers ahead, and Andy Dorman behind, and he comes over on Dorman, gets speared straight off into the barriers. That was not a nice place to be making contact.
Yeah, I mean, that for me was just a case of he didn't really realise whatsoever that Andy Dorman is off to his right and just simply turned across his nose, and that was job done at that point. So very unfortunate, but Simon unfortunately brought that one on himself, really. So nothing really Dorman could have done there.
Not really, wrong place, wrong time for Dorman. It means that he does pick up one place in 16th position, but a little bit of contact, not ideal. On board with Andy Carroll now, he is 5th. That is Max Edmondson ahead of us. These two have traded places already a couple of times on this lap, and it is Edmondson who gets ahead at Copse Corner. And well, interesting idea of what track limits are there for Andy Carroll, but actually it benefits him not at all, because look at that, Elliot Dalton-Ayres comes steaming through the middle of both of them, and he brings Nicky Taylor with him as well. So now Max Edmondson's got Dalton-Ayres to his outside at Beckett. There's a bit of a hip and shoulder, out wide goes Dalton-Ayres. That allows Nicky Taylor up the inside as well. 2 places gained then in one corner there for Nicky Taylor, and he might make it a third down the Wellington Straight, because he gets the run on Max Edmondson, who immediately has to pull over to the inside line to defend. This is all getting very, very close indeed, and this is all the fight for 4th place.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to say it now. Nicky Taylor is putting on one hell of a drive here at the moment with a huge sideways moment. Round the outside, he's going to have to take the grass and hopefully he can get that car stopped and do a safe rejoin. Oh, it looked a lot worse on screen than maybe it actually was. Doing a good job there to get the car slowed down, but he's lost significant time. Look at this, dropping all the way back down to P10 with Chris Shepherd with a significant run on him as well. So I imagine this will be probably P12 by the time they come out to the end of turn 1. In fact, actually, there's a driver I didn't even see. Eric Axelson's managed to find his way up the inside as well. So what a drive by Eric so far. But yeah, Max Edmondson now probably a bit relieved of that. We've seen how quick Nicky Taylor is in race trim. So Edmondson doing very, very well indeed there.
Yeah, just about managing to fend off Dalton Ayres again through Beckett's corner. The biggest mover so far, by the way, is Scott Bugner, the race 1 winner, already up from 20th on the grid to 7th place now, and that means that he's right on the tail of this group. You can just see the black and multicoloured car just behind these three. There he is. Look, Scott Bugner, 7th position for him, just ahead of Josh Martin. So 2 quick drivers there together, just outside the top half dozen or so. Into Brooklands goes Max Edmondson again, holding on to this 4th place, keeping Dalton Ayres behind him, and Andy Carroll having a pretty strong showing here as well in 6th place. They're all sort of closing in slightly here on John Jones. The top 2 have gone. Look, Buki and Smith, they're still together, but they are 2.5 seconds nearly now clear of John Jones in 3rd, who's got Edmondson, Dalton Ayres, Carroll, Bugner, and everybody else closing in on him.
Yeah, I mean, this is absolutely fantastic race, exactly what we wanted to see for this championship. Edmondson not having it his own way here really, with Bugner managing to make up a lot of places, and actually there just posting the fastest lap as well. So there's an extra point taken away from Edmondson's gap that he had between 2nd and 1st of Scott Bugner, who we're currently on board with. And if I'm honest with you, Andy, looking at the way he's driving here, he is coming through the pack. He is a man on a mission right now.
He's already 15 points ahead of Edmondson now after that race 1 victory, and as we stand, only 3 places behind Edmondson in this race, with every chance of gaining some of those places before the end of the race. We're only coming towards half race distance now, 10.25 minutes still on the clock. We're on board with Andy Carroll, watching as Max Edmondson continues to defend here from Elliott Dalton Ayres, but also now starts to think about attacking John Jones for 3rd position. But a good drive this from John so far. We've seen him occasionally near the pointy end in these reversed grid races, but more often than not seems to find himself on the wrong side of the shuffle. And John's best finish of the season so far, a 12th position from the reversed grid race at Brands Hatch right back at the start of the season. So he's driving well at the moment. Might not be quite as quick as those cars behind him, but he's not sort of overly defending at the moment, is he? And I think that's actually helping him to hang on to the place.
Yeah, it is indeed. I mean, you can see they're running a little bit wide, but we've said about track limits on turn 1. Yes, it looks very excessive on screen, but I can tell you now, it is significantly slower. The tarmac really pulls the speed out the car, so it means that you can't gain an advantage by going wide. And you can see already Max Edmondson is now almost drawn alongside, but that weight just hasn't allowed him to pull past there. So the first time we've really seen the weight hinder him, and that's Max Edmondson trying to go up the inside of John Jones, and somehow he's managed to rescue that. But there, he's dropping significantly down now. John Jones is off significantly as well on the previous corner, and I think that's Josh Martin who is going to end up the inside of Max Edmondson. So Edmondson's now dropped down to 7, and Bugner, his main championship rival, up into P4.
Was desperation setting in for Max Edmondson. You're right, he had the run down the back straight. The weight prevented him from doing anything with it, so he sent it up the inside into Brooklands. That was a fairly low percentage move, I think, and I don't know whether he's going to get in trouble for it, but it's those sort of things that can come back to haunt you when you're fighting for a championship. Not only did it cost him places, not only did it allow Bugner through into a podium place now, by the way, Scott Bugner. Could he become the first driver all season to do the double and win both races in a night? Well, he's 4.3 seconds behind the race leader, so perhaps not, but either way, he's onto the podium, which would be a brilliant, brilliant result for him. But yes, Edmondson could potentially find himself having a conversation with the race stewards after that move down at Brooklands. Again, not our job, thankfully, to decide who's at fault, but certainly that looked like contact that could have been avoided. They're almost together again. They're going into Brooklands. That's Eric Axelson out wide. Max Bird starting to get involved as well. And on the grass goes Axelson. Max Bird, really good presence of mind there, Dave, actually, to realise that Axelson was probably not going to stop for the corner. And Max just opened the steering up, let Axelson have the space to rejoin, and they just avoided contact.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong in saying this, but it looked to me like Max Bird gave him a little bit of a nudge going into Brooklands, and then Eric went, you know what, for that, I'm going to throw up the inside, and you better see I'm coming there. So actually, great driving between the both, and maybe a little bit hard, but I tell you what, Nicky Taylor there has got a hell of a bump there from the drive behind, and that's actually going to bring him right alongside with Josh Martin. So Max Edmondson really getting boxed in here, and I imagine probably with quite a lot of frustration that he can't progress through this grid quite like he actually wants to. For me as well, that previous collision with John Jones, from the angle we saw, it is very, very difficult indeed to tell what actually happened there. It looked like a lunge from Edmondson, but it's not to say John Jones didn't move on the brakes. So without actually investigating that, we wouldn't really be able to tell. That to me looks like Max Edmondson's really committed to the inside. There's a nudge there from Eric Axelsen, and that's pushed Max Bird wide, who's then lost it the other way. So what car control that was by Max Bird to avoid that from spinning out completely. But I tell you what, this is what happens. 7 cars, wheel to wheel. It's just getting a little bit argy-bargy for me now, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't take an Einstein to work out that was going to end in tears, did it? Because they were 3 wide into the corner, and I'm absolutely convinced that the car on the outside, which I think was Eric Axelsen, didn't realise he had 2 cars up the inside of him going into Brooklands corner, and that contact was fairly inevitable, you'd have to say. They all survived, though. That's the main thing. Nicky Taylor back into 6th place now ahead of Max Edmondson. You're absolutely right about Max. He will be an angry driver right now because he was making progress. This was on course to be a brilliant race for Max Edmondson and a really important opportunity to get some points back on this man, Scott Bugner. And now it is all starting to unravel. That being said, though, Bugner there in danger of losing 3rd position to Dalton Ayres. Now, these two had been catching the race leaders at about half a second a lap or so. They might just have had time to catch the top 2, and now they've started fighting over 3rd place. Dalton Ayres will go through, and that might just have cost them any chance they had of catching Dave Buki and Brad Smith, who are now 1.5 seconds apart from each other at the front of the field.
Yeah, to which it looks like, I don't want to give him a commentator's curse, but Buki's doing a great job here. Pulled out a 1.5 seconds and looks to be about 3/10 faster a lap than Brad Smith. So doing a great job here so far. Scott Bugner just having a little nibble at the back of Elliott's car there. And I'll probably suggest at this point, he knows already he's outscored Max Edmondson. Edmondson's got the pressure on to try and get these points. Elliott is looking very, very quick indeed. For me, this is where Scott actually just needs to take a step back. Go, you know what? Not worth getting a penalty here. Let's not do anything daft. Just sit and hold position. Even if Carroll closes in on him, maybe let Carroll through as well. He's still got significant points now for this round and done very, very well indeed.
Yeah, but like he said, he knows that doing well this week probably means he'll pick up some more ballast for next week. At the moment, Bugner is only carrying 30 kilos. That's certain to go up to at least 40 for next week at Croft, and that's not going to be a good place to be carrying weight. Oh, bit of contact off Luffield there as he had made a brilliant switchback manoeuvre, had Bugner there, to get back up the inside and ahead of Elliott Dalton Ayres. Nearly threw it all away on the exit of the corner, but he does go back into P3. But yeah, I'm sure that'll be on his mind. Well, it is, because he said that to us after race 1. He knows he needs to get as many points out of tonight as possible, because it might not be possible to recreate this form with a little bit of extra weight on board next week. So he's back into 3rd, and I'm sure would very much like to keep it. All chance of catching the leaders has pretty much gone now, you would say, but at least if he can stay on the podium, that would continue his really impressive, consistent run, and it would score him that extra few points. So I'm sure he's not going to give up that place without a fight.
Yeah, I mean, look at this battle, Andy. We've got a battle here from P6 way back to the likes of Joe Last. Chris Shepherd isn't too far off either. So this is a real pack here that realistically we don't really know whether the driver's even going to come out with this. Eric Axelsen going around the outside. Max Edmondson super late on the brakes on the way in. There's a tap there. I believe Nicky Taylor's a little bit sideways, but he will still manage to hold the inside line. So I believe, yeah, you can just see there Nicky Taylor's nose just up the inside of Joe Lask. And I tell you what, Josh Martin now got himself out in front. I think, I could be wrong in saying this, Max Edmondson's actually a little bit of a cork in the bottle at the moment. He's holding these drivers back, and it's making it very hard for the drivers behind to figure out who's got right away and who's going to pass where, because let's face it, Max Edmondson is struggling a bit here, I would say.
Yeah, could well be carrying some damage, of course, as a result of the contact with John Jones. Not too sure, but yeah, whatever it is. I mean, he will also be struggling, I guess, with tyres, based on the amount of weight he's carrying. He'll have worked those tyres quite hard through the early laps to make all of the progress that he did, and maybe now he's just struggling to get the car turned through some of these long, tight right-handers. Scott Bugner, by the way, down to 5th. It's been a big change there for 3rd, because actually Andy Carroll has got himself ahead of Bugner, and now he's up the inside of Elliot Dalton-Ayres for 3rd place into Brooklands corner. Bugner carrying all the speed in the world into Brooklands, but there was nowhere to go with it because they were side by side on the apex in front of him. Carroll goes into 3rd position. Brilliant drive this from Andy Carroll into a podium place, but can he stay there? 2 laps to go.
Yeah, you know what? This is probably a case of Andy's just been looking after his tyres a little bit here, and he's actually got quite a lot left in the car towards the end. We didn't obviously see what happened with Bugner. He seemed to lose out a little bit there on speed, but Elliot really trying to hold. In fact, he's going to try and go around the outside of Bugner. That's very, very brave indeed. You can see all 2 cars, Bugner managed just about to keep that on track there, but that's exactly what I was saying. Even though Elliot ran that wide, carried the speed out on the corner, ended up dropping a car length behind Scott Bugner, so no advantage whatsoever. I can't help but feel like this is Scott just weighing up the risk and maybe not trying to overdrive it here. You know, he looks very, very late on the brake in certain areas, but crucially for me, he's just trying to keep his nose a little bit clean, I think.
Yeah, the last thing he needs here is contact, which could damage his car, send him off, or worse, in a way, get himself a penalty. So, yeah, Scott Bugner maybe just boxing clever here, knows he's going to take some points out of Max Edmondson. I'm sure if the opportunity arises, he will go back past Andy Carroll, and we're going on to the final lap now, so I'm pretty sure he will be looking to have a go down that Wellington straight, but whether he's going to actually be able to make it stick or not, we'll have to wait and see. We're on to the final lap of the race then. Dave Buki looks like he's on for his first race victory of the season so far, his 2nd podium appearance so far this season as well. Smith 2nd. The question is, who will join them on the podium? Oh, Edmondson, contact from Nicky Taylor. Sideways for Max Edmondson through the right-hander. That was close to disaster. It costs him more places, though. Axelson and Max Bird both get ahead of him. And it looks like, yes, Mark Hughes goes through as well. Blimey, this is a night to forget for Edmondson. He's back up the inside of Hughes into Beckett's corner. That should give him at least 11th place back. Yes, it does. But that was just another bit of contact for Edmondson. When it's not your night, it's just not your night.
Yeah, I could be wrong there. Yet again, I'll need to see it on a replay. But it maybe looked to me like Edmondson just tried to close the door a little bit on Nicky Taylor on the entry to that corner, trying to open turn 1 up. And it wasn't needed. He had the inside line, and that little collision turned the back end the wrong way, and we ended up where we were. But what a fantastic race. Well done, Dave Buki, winning the race by nearly 3 seconds. I think finally he'd be pretty relieved to put all of that practice and all of that work together. Fantastic win. Brad Smith there, a well-deserved P2. And Andy Carroll, wow, what a P3 finish for him, coming back through the grid, looking after them tyres. What a brilliant race result. Edmondson there, back in 11th place. Mark Hughes, a brilliant finish as well in P12. Wow, what a race that was, with some fantastic action there.
So many stories, so much to unpack from that one, and could this be the night? I've noticed in every VRRC championship that I've covered so far, there's always been 1 week at some point, it normally is around this point of the championship, where one championship contender has a bad night, one championship contender has a good night, and so often that proves to be the turning point in the championship. I wonder if that's what we witnessed tonight, with Scott Bugner getting a win in race 1 and a solid 4th place finish in race 2. It means that he still has managed to finish inside the top 5 in every race so far this season. It's Dave Buki, though, who gets himself the race victory. As I said, his first win of this Civic Cup campaign, and he wins it by 3 seconds in the end over Brad Smith in 2nd and Andy Carroll in 3rd position. Scott Bugner 4th, Elliot Dalton-Ayres 5th, Joel Last, Josh Martin, Nicky Taylor, Max Bird and Eric Axelson round out the top 10. Right then, let's start to unpack everything that went on there then, shall we? We've got our podium drivers in the commentary box with us, and it is, for the first time this season, a race victory for Dave Buki. Dave, there was so much potential in the first race. You qualified really well, looked like you might be a contender in that one. See, that didn't quite go to plan, but at least it gave you the good grip position in race 2, and yeah, you absolutely capitalised on that.
Yeah, I think I've done a bit of practice for these last couple, and it's been a bit of a shame because obviously I race in the Civic Cup as well, so come on the sim and not finish most of the races is a little disappointing, but I know the pace is there, especially when we've done a bit of practice, and yeah, it was a shame about the first one. I got knocked off at turn 2. I thought I qualified well, and obviously just had to capitalise on the reverse grid.
Which you did. I mean, you've had one podium already this season. That actually, I think, came in a race 1, though, did it not? Yeah, race 1 at Thruxton. So, actually, you've had genuine pace all season. We shouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, Civic Cup is something you know an awful lot about, and you're maybe in a good position to really tell us how close this is to the real thing, because you've had success in both now.
Yeah, it's certainly close. Obviously, competitive, close racing. The cars are quite loose, and they bounce a lot over the curbs, which, to be honest, the car's much better here than it was at Alton Park and Thruxton, because there's less curbs to take. So it's a bit of a smoother surface. But yeah, the cars feel pretty good, to be honest. The only thing you don't get, as I've said before, is just that movement, all the feelings through the wheel. But I'm starting to pick it up, starting to get used to it, and enjoying it. So yeah, it's been good.
And the racing, certainly, as someone who has followed and worked in the championship myself and called some amazing races in the Real World Championship, the racing is very, very similar to what you see. I mean, Civic Cup at Silverstone National, you always get that slipstream, that side-by-side racing, little bit of touchy-feely stuff here and there as well. And it must feel, when you're in those battles, it must feel a bit like you're out there on the track as well.
Well, it's just all about attacking and defending at the same time, and it's two skills that you have to kind of put together. And when you're in the Civic Cup, likewise, when you're on sim racing, it's very close. I think the top 10 qualified within a couple of attempts, so it just shows how close it is. And you're always looking in your mirror. Now, what that does is you've got to defend, and when you defend, you know yourself, it slows you down. So it is difficult. It's all about positioning your car in the right place and having that spatial awareness of what's going on around you, and kind of preempting the situations of what somebody's going to do or what they're going to attempt to do behind you. And then in some cases allowing them to go for the move and then getting the cutback on them.
Those years of real world experience perhaps giving you the edge then on a track where it really was all about fine-tuning your racecraft. You did it to perfection in that second race. Huge congratulations on the first win of the season, Dave. And also I think we've come to an agreement that you're our driver of the round, so the Power Max kit heading your way, and not just because of that race 2 win, but as we said, you qualified really well. You were a bit unlucky not to be a contender in race 1-2, so driver of the round and a race win, not a bad night's work.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for putting on a show. It's good, as always. And congrats to you guys for everything you do as well at your end.
Well, the pleasure is all ours, mate. That is for sure. Dave Buki, then, race winner in our second race of the night here at Silverstone. And Dave is going to catch up with our runner-up.
I will do. And that is Brad Smith. Congratulations, Brad. If I'm honest, it's quite nice to finally see you're rewarded for the practice you put in and the pace that you do have in the car, finally bringing home in a P2. Granted, it was a reverse grid, but we knew you had the pace in the car and the driving skill to do it. Just a little bit unlucky in certain times. Well done, mate.
Thank you very much. It's a bit weird because this is the only one I haven't practiced for. It's I might just not practice for the next one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them tracks where it's one thing setting a fast lap time, but you've seen how close the racing is and how quickly it can develop. It seemed like to me, as soon as the pack starts to squabble, starts to battle amongst each other, that's really the time you can do the damage and really start to pull away.
Yeah, as soon as someone makes a mistake, that just opens it up then. You can pass 2-3 cars. So it just makes it... I was just following everyone. As soon as they made a mistake, take my opportunity and take it, and then move on to the next person.
And we'll really quickly jump onto your battle with Boogie. You obviously held on to him reasonably well for the first quarter of the race, and then he just seemed to have a little bit of legs on you. I take that was maybe a little bit of tyre wear just starting to bring itself in there, and the slipstream not quite strong enough to bring you back into that battle.
I was right behind him, and I thought, I'm getting a bit too close here, I don't want to wipe him out. So I backed off a little bit, and then, yeah, tyre wear came into it, and Dave just stayed at the same pace, and I started losing time.
Well, it's a fantastic effort, Brad, and as I say, really nice to actually see you rewarded for the amount of practice and the driving speed that you actually do have. So, brilliant P2 there, and looking forward to seeing what you can do at Croft.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Spot on, and we'll pass it back over to Andy to take away with our P3 driver.
Yes, and it is Andy Carroll who gets the third place finish in that race. And Andy, what a drive that was. I mean, it could have been any one of a group of drivers who took that final step on the podium, but you managed to make that move late in the race. Had you been planning that for a while, or was that just an opportune moment that you were able to take advantage of?
Yeah, the two guys in front seem to be getting quite involved with each other. So I was just kind of sitting there hoping that I'd get an opportunity to kind of get past them both. And yeah, just managed to sort of save my tyres a little bit in the mid part of that race. And then, yes, they had another sort of touching of doors, and it slowed them both down just enough that I could slip past on the inside. And yeah, from there, just managed to keep Scott behind me as much as I could, and yeah, just had enough to get through the last complex and get ahead of him in the line. So yeah, it was definitely a lot of tough, close racing in that second race. Lots of guys around you, and yeah, really some respects, you know, have to be a bit lucky here and there to come out of some of those corners when there's 4, 5 or 6 cars all trying to vie for the same tarmac.
It's great to watch. It's certainly the kind of racing I enjoy watching and being a part of as well. But you know, it is some drivers love that kind of slipstreamy stuff where you can't really escape from each other and there's overtaking every lap. And some drivers just don't get on with it, even if they're quite good at it. They don't really enjoy that aspect of it. Are you a driver who sort of relishes those wheel-to-wheel battles that seem to last the entire duration of the race?
I think they definitely leave a smile on your face. Yeah, it's at the time it's kind of you're just trying to make sure your car's not going to, you know, be in the wrong place at the wrong time and take someone out. Trying to make it as close and clean as possible. But then sort of when you get onto the straight, you can kind of then sort of take a little breath and really sort of appreciate how much fun it can be just getting, you know, trying to battle that many people at once.
As I said, certainly fun to watch. A huge congratulations on that podium finish. Your second of the season, and it should move you now nicely into the top 10 in the points as well. So congratulations on that, Andy, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Andy. See you soon.
Andy Carroll then, third place finish in our second race of the day. We are not done with the interviews yet, though, because Dave Marshall has got a very special guest here in the commentary box to catch up with, someone who's been a little bit in the wars of late, but Dave is here to have a chat with the one and only Rich Hayden.
Yeah, we'll indeed. We'll bring the main man in, a little bit injured, as you said, but fighting fit still. He'd had his surgery just the other day, so we're all right. We're on the mend. Rich, what a fantastic race that was, and I tell you what, to have all the grid, I believe it was within 0.8 of a second of each other, and especially the top 10 all within about 0.4. We couldn't have hoped for much closer racing, really.
I'll take my mic off mute, shall I? That was brilliant racing. Yeah, nice and clean. There was a couple of little bits and bobs here and there, but it was just, you know, racing's rubbing types of contact. I didn't have to really say much to the guys. So yeah, all fair play to everybody that raced this evening. It was really close, really good to see.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic spectacle to watch. And we heard from Andy there. We were just saying about, you know, when you've got that straight and you've got time to just go right into the next corner, but you're 4 wide. I tell you what, it's moments like that when you think, I really should just back out of this. But it's that instinct of going, but I might come out in front.
Yeah, it's so difficult. It's one of the things I learned a long time ago, isn't it? Which is, do you know what? Just hang back and see what happens. But no, it's really good racing tonight. Really good racing tonight. And obviously, the reason why I wanted to just jump in to give you a little bit of a tease. I know you know about this, Dave, because we've been talking about it. But a little bit of tease for our next championship. We're developing a hybrid touring car. So, and we're looking to do a touring car championship very soon on Assetto Corsa with hybrid, and also we're going to be adding in tyre compounds as well, and we're going to go for an endurance race within that championship as well. So we're going to redo a touring car championship after the Civic, most probably after Civic, and I just wanted to really whet people's appetites for that. Yeah, we're going to have the first championship with touring cars with hybrid tech. 2 different tyre compounds, mixing up the strategy, and also adding an endurance race with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely whetting my appetite, and if I'm honest, I'd rather be on the grid for one of them. It sounds like absolutely amazing fun, but looking forward to seeing how that works, and I'm sure there'll be inundated people wanting to try and get their hands on a car that is relevant to the real world now, moving forward with this hybrid technology as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was it. That's all I wanted to do, guys, just to wet people's whistles with hopefully we'll be one of the first Assetto Corsa championships with hybrid touring car.
Hopefully so. Well, fantastic talking to you there, Rich. And we'll pass back to Andy McEwen to finish off the night, and also just a quick roundup, really, Andy. I'm trying to get my head round all of what's gone on regarding the championship.
Absolutely. Great stuff. Thanks for popping in there, Rich, to tell us all about that. That sounds really, really exciting. So has been the Civic Cup up to this point, but the championship standings, as you can see, are not quite as tight as they were at the start of the evening, because it has been just one of those nights where Scott Bugner has had the pace, he's had the look, and Max Edmondson just hasn't been able to catch a lucky break. Bugner then leads the championship by, 23 points. He was 1 point ahead coming into this evening's two races. He is 23 ahead now as we head for Croft in a week's time. Max Edmondson, though, does actually hang on to second place in the championship. That surprises me a little bit, given the amount of issues he had tonight. He's still second, ahead of Max Bird in third. It's then very tight. Look, Bird just 1 point ahead of Joel Lask, who is 10 points then ahead of Elliot Dalton-Ayres, Eric Axelson, Josh Martin, Andy Dorman, Andy Carroll, and Will Redford round out the top 10 in the championship standings. Our race 2 winner, Dave Buki, moves up into joint 12th position there with the maximum points haul in race number 2. Brad Smith also gained some ground, having finished second in that race. He's 14th in the championship standings. Jordan Brennan, who's been absent this week, is down there in 16th place. And Nicky Taylor into the 50s now as far as his points haul is concerned. Didn't have maybe quite the showing this week that he would have liked, but I did make a bit of a prediction a week ago when he joined the championship part that he would make it into the top 10 in points by the end of the season, and he is about 32 points away from the top 10 right now. I think that is definitely doable for Nicky with 2 weeks of racing to go. So that is how the championship standings stand as we head towards Croft. And Dave, it's finally poised, but I feel that next week is a must-do well week for Max Edmondson, isn't it? He needs to do something about that 20-odd point deficit.
Yeah, it is. Croft is the decider. If you cannot manage to pull back significant points at Croft, unfortunately, I would say that's probably his championship almost decided regarding going for the win. And then you've got the likes of P3. That is the bit for me that is really undecided. Max Bird, you've got in there Joel Lask. Eric Axelson down in, I believe it was 6th place, not out that picture either for P3. So a lot of drivers still in very, very good contention for that P3 finish.
Certainly are, and as we said, it is Croft in Yorkshire where we'll be heading next. Not a circuit that we see used an awful lot really in sim racing, so nice to have that here on the VRRC. And then we go to Donington Park, the Donington Park National Circuit, which, believe me, is capable of producing racing every bit as exciting as what we saw tonight here at Silverstone. It's a great track for racing, especially one-mate racing such as Civic Cup, and that is the perfect place to round out the championship on the 8th of June. Will the championship be decided before then? Doubtful. These championships have a habit of twisting and turning and ending up coming right down to the very last race of the season, and I'm sure that Max Edmondson certainly is going to do his absolute best to make sure that that can happen. So 2 more weeks of racing then in the VRRC Civic Cup. But Dave, that is not all that we have here on the VRRC, because the VRRC has something to keep you entertained every single day of the week, and I think you can tell us a bit more about what they're doing at the moment.
It does indeed. So as usual, we've still got our dirt rally that runs. It's actually monthly now instead of weekly, so you've got a month to do the stages that are posted. We've also got our Forza 5 community as well that's still active on our Discord, our ACC races that happen, and also a set of course you've got our usual championships, which is what we're currently watching. Time Attack, that is also running monthly. Our fun races that are run by Lewis on weekends, but also not to mainly forget our next Assetto Corsa Championship, which now has just been dropped. It is looking like it's going to be a touring car with a hybrid system as well. So it's very, very exciting indeed. So if that seems like a bit of you, make sure you jump into our Discord, get involved with VRRC, and get involved with some of this fantastic racing that's going on.
Absolutely, could not agree more. Do head over to their website, their Discord, and their social media for more information on where you can watch or participate in some of the best sim racing around. Well, we've seen some brilliant sim racing tonight here at Silverstone. It's certainly been a dramatic night of racing. Some of the best side-by-side racing we've had all season long, and perhaps a definitive pair of races in the championship chase. Scott Bugner looking good now at the top of the points, but with 4 races to go at 2 very challenging racetracks, no one is going to be giving him that championship crown just yet. He'll have to fight for it at Croft in a week's time, and Donington Park in 2 weeks' time at the championship finale. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here at Silverstone. I've been Andy McEwen. Dave Marshall, thank you for jumping in as well. I believe Jack Oliphant will be back with us again for next week, where we'll be taking the mickey out of him for choosing cricket over sim racing tonight, I'm sure. Very much grateful to have you alongside me, though, Dave. Everyone else here at the VRRC for all of their hard work that they do on the broadcasts as well. We will see you all in a week's time at Croft. But for now, that is all we have time for here at Silverstone.
Woo!